So a place where we can use this idea of plugging in values into a formula is in something called the discriminant. So the discriminant lets us decide how many solutions a quadratic equation should have. So if your discriminant is a positive number, you're going to have 2 solutions. If your discriminant is a negative number, you'll have no solutions. And if your discriminant is 0, you'll have 1 solution. So with this discriminant, the value that you get from this is going to be underneath the square root sign. So that's why when you take the square root of something positive, you have 2 solutions. Square root of something negative is no solution, and square root of 0 is 1 solution. So why it's useful is it lets us know how many zeros or how many solutions our graph will have. So remember, X-intercepts, we've got our zeros or roots or solutions. So in this situation where we have 2 solutions, that would be if the discriminant is positive. So that means we took the square root of some positive number. When it's no solution, that's when you have a negative discriminant. So no solution, remember, has no x-intercepts. And then 1 solution is when the parabola only touches the x-axis 1 time, and that's when the discriminant is 0, because square root of 0 is just 0, so you only have 1 solution. So putting this into action, if I wanted to decide how many solutions this quadratic equation would have, I'm wondering how many times is it going to cross the x-axis. So this formula is a quick way to decide how to sketch my graph. So my A is 2, my B is 3, and my C is -6. So plugging that in, you're going to put parentheses around everything. So we've got 3 squared minus 4 times A, which is 2, times C, which is -6. So we kept that minus sign with the 6. So that's going to be 9 minus 4 times 2 times -6 is -48. So minus -48. So that's going to turn into a plus. So right away, 9 plus 48 is a positive number. So we know this one's going to be 2 solutions. So we don't really care what this value is right now. We just care, is it positive, is it negative, is it 0? So as soon as it's positive, we know it's 2 solutions. So let's see another one. So in this one, A is 1, B is -24, and C is 144. So if we plug that in, we've got B squared, so -24 squared, minus 4 times A times C. So -24 squared is 576. And then 4 times 1 times 144 is also 576. So we know 576 minus 576 is going to equal 0. So this equation is going to have 1 solution. So it would touch the x-axis 1 time. And then the last example we're going to look at for here is this one. So we've got A is 2, B is 3, and C is 10. So notice when you're doing the discriminant, make sure it's equal to 0. So that's something I didn't really point out, but your equation should equal 0 when you're finding your A, B, and C. So we've got B squared, so 3 squared minus 4 times A times C. So 3 squared is 9, and then 4 times 2 times 10 is 80. So right away you should be able to see 9 minus 80 is going to be a negative number, so this one's going to have no solution. So if we know it's going to be positive, it's 2 solutions. If we know it's going to be negative, it's no solution. And then if it's 0, it's 1 solution. All right, hopefully that was helpful. So before we go, I want to look at the 2 special cases. So sometimes the quadratic equations are missing parts. So here you can see that A is 2, and A we know has the x squared with it, because we've got ax squared plus bx. I'm missing that bx term. So when you're missing a term, you're going to plug in 0 for it. And then C is the constant and it has no x, so C is 3. So when you plug it in, it would look like 0 squared minus 4 times A times C. So you'd have 0 minus 4 times 2 is 8 times 3 is 24. So 0 minus 24 is a negative number, so this one would have no solution if I graphed it. So if you're missing your x term, you're just going to say B is 0. Another thing that you might be missing, here we've got A is 1, because there's that invisible 1. Your B is the -5, and then we're missing that added on constant, so it's kind of like there's an invisible plus 0 in here. So C is going to equal 0. So it's not because it equals 0, it's because there's an invisible plus 0 here. So when you plug it in, it looks like -5 squared minus 4 times 1 times 0. So -5 squared is 25. And then all of this, 4 times 1 times 0 is 0. So 25 minus 0 is a positive number, so this one has 2 solutions. So that's what happens if you're missing one of your values. You're just going to plug in 0 for whatever you're missing. All right, why don't you guys go try some practice problems.